Hello and welcome to the Kirklees Armed Force Covenant broadcast. My name is Dr. Milton Brown, and today I am honored to introduce Don Campbell, a distinguished veteran, author, community leader whose life story is a testament to resilience, dedication, and the power of heritage. Born in Jamaica and emigrating to the UK at 13 years old, Don set his sights on a military career early on. By 18, he had enlisted in the Royal Air Force, where he would serve with distinction for 36 years. His work on operational units with fast jets and helicopters earned him high praise, including 2 commendations, one of which was tied to the Queen's Birthday Honours list in 2002. He also received the Good Show Award in 2004 for outstanding contributions to the Careers Information Service. Now, a proud veteran, Don devotes his time to documenting, celebrating British, African, Caribbean heritage contributions, particularly to those of the Windrush generation. Through his community interest company, The Forgotten Generations, he works to preserve these stories, ensuring they are remembered for future generations. As an author, motivational speaker, and community ambassador, Don's voice inspires and educates, offering valuable insights into the history, culture, and the challenges Black communities face today in Britain. Welcome, Don, and it's great to have you.
Thank you very much, Milton. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for inviting me to your platform.
You seem to be very, very busy, 36 years in the Royal Air Force, and you're still rocking and rolling since you left. How are you feeling today?
I've got to say that I'm feeling good, and I thank the Lord for that, because after 36 years service, I immersed myself now into the community as a community ambassador, and I see this as every day is a good day.
Well, I'm going to touch on some of that community stuff and the community ambassador's role that you have. But I'm just thinking, as an ex-serviceman working with the local community, how do you navigate that? Because I know actually being in the services, it's a can-do attitude, it's a solution-focused attitude, and it's also a military education. So how do you navigate that when working with your community?
Well, I navigate that by starting off with like the church, the schools, the police, and indeed any other organization, African and Caribbean associations, that will allow me to come in and share my experience. And that keeps me fairly busy as I multiply that around the different cities in England and indeed other countries of UK.
Excellent. So what initially inspired you to pursue a career in the Royal Air Force? And how did your childhood experience in Jamaica shape this ambition?
Yeah, I am not sure that my childhood experience in Jamaica actually influenced this, but until much later in life, I realized that my head teacher was actually an ex-World War II veteran. But at the time, I wasn't educated to that fact. It was only much later when I wrote my book, My Path of Life, and I retraced my step. And I remember somebody saying to me that the reason why he walked with a limp is that because he got injured in his campaign as a World War II veteran. That didn't mean anything to me at that time. But however, much later in life, when I came to England and I went to school at about age 15, I just found myself very interested in the military side of life. I don't know why, because I had no relatives or friends or anybody in the military. I just probably was influenced by reading books and watching the TV. And I just wanted to be military. So I approached my teacher and said that I wanted to be in the armed forces. He then allowed me to go and have a look at the various armed forces careers offices. and the Air Force turned out to be the one that I was successful with. So that's how I joined the Royal Air Force, really.
Watching the TV and watching. So what was exciting about when you're watching the TV and the military? Anything in particular?
Right. So what was really exciting was watching these. I guess maybe it was soldiers at that time rather than airmen, and they were like traveling abroad in their uniform, and you know, when they weren't marching and doing their thing, they were actually out in the bars with girls and things like that. But in a wider perspective, I was in a conurbation, which is the second city of England, Birmingham, where I was living amongst high-rise flats and a concrete sort of jungle. And for me, having been an avid reader when I was younger, I saw a bigger world, and that world seems much more of an opportunity than being in this sort of you know uh, high-rise flats and lots of motor vehicles. So that combined with seeing soldiers marching and having a good time going around the world influenced me in wanting to be one of them.
Thanks for that, Don. I guess throughout your 36 years in the Royal Air Force, what was the most impactful lesson you learned, let's say personally and also professionally?
Well, personally, and I had to learn this earlier on, is that you must learn to manage yourself as an individual. And by that I mean is that uh, you can be set upon because of the way you look, because of the color of the skin, or many different reasons. And you have to learn to manage that.
I have a book here called British Caribbean Veterans by um, Rose Johnson, and you're in here, and you talked about in here how you felt that you were treated differently at times than your white counterparts. Could you share a little bit about that, please, or expand on it?
Yes, yes, I can definitely share that. It is very noticeable as I went up the ranks um, and being in charge of my particular section, as they call it. And I can remember on more than one occasion, at least three occasions, even though I had the rank on my shoulders, people would walk past me and go to the nearest white face and say, where is your boss? And they would then turn and said, you just walk past him.
Mhm.
So when that happens to you time and time again, it leaves a lasting impact on you. And it makes you realize that the world that you live in isn't balanced or equal. And that means that you've got to work a lot of times, 2 or 3 times harder to achieve something that somebody else that looks different to you will achieve just with a win. So those things were very, very difficult to navigate and negotiate and get on with in terms of not letting it get you down. You have to have a focus in life and a determination to achieve. Otherwise, these things will weigh very heavily on your whole being. Yeah.
You touched on there about focus, determination in life. All these things will will affect your whole being. What was the the focus and determination? Where did you draw that from? And if you could just share a little bit of what was it?
Hmm. Well, I had a very good sort of parent, mother, especially mother, who very loving she was. So therefore, she gave us that ground and that sort of basis to say, go out and achieve. So having set myself a target of getting to the rank of honors, and I did set myself that target. I thought to myself, even though I'm experiencing all these difficulties, those that was still my target. And I had a lot of, you know, ups and downs, but I had a lot of good times because you also get people who see your abilities and encourage your abilities, as well as those who saw your ability and ignore them, or even use your ability when you make valid, important suggestions. So, I had to balance the whole thing and keep my mind focused and say, where do I want to get to with this? And that's how I managed to navigate myself through to where I got to.
Excellent. So, when did you leave the Air Force, and how was that transitioning period for you?
I left the Air Force in 2006, and I prepared myself to leave the Air Force because I made sure that I lived locally. I bought a house, and I commuted from my house to work. So I was then phasing myself into Silver Street, as it were. So I know that it can be quite something traumatic in some cases for some armed forces personnel to go from, especially such a long time in the armed forces, to civilian life. So I made sure that I sort of one foot in civil history, one foot in the Air Force for the last however many years of my life. So once I finished, it's not that I didn't miss the life, because you've got to miss the life, but I also started to immerse and integrate myself into Silver Street. I still miss the camaraderie of the life I lived, because it's second to none, really. But you just say to yourself that that's that phase of life, and it's gone by. You don't ever forget it. But now another phase of life starts, so you just gotta get on with that.
Mhm. So, reflecting on, before we move into the forgotten hero, the forgotten generation, sorry, um, highlights from your military career. What was the biggest highlight for you?
Oh, there was so many.
So many, I can imagine.
I think I say to people that I've been to the University of Life, because as I traveled around, there was so many highlights, from Germany to Norway to Denmark, to other tropical areas and things. And you see so much in terms of what you would never see in the UK. Even going to Norway, into the northern hemisphere, I was there for 12 days, and no night at all. So all these different experiences as you travel. I went to the Falklands for 4 months, and that was quite an experience in terms of the different weather conditions, wildlife, and all that sort of thing. It's also educational. Uh, but given the responsibility of managing the training school for my trade, was an enormous endeavor and undertaking, must not be underestimated, because I was there to ensure that all the trainees coming into my trade in the Royal Air Force had to be molded, tested, and ensure that they are able to meet whatever they're gonna meet out on the front line, and be capable of maintaining high standards in what we do.
Thanks for that, Dom. So now you're out, and when did the forgotten generations, when did you establish that? And why is it important to document the stories of British African Caribbean veterans, particularly those from the Windrush generation?
Right, I started the organization in May 2021, I believe it was. Yeah, just over 3 years ago. And really and truly, I'd written a book, my first book. I'm writing 3 books. The second one is on its way. The first book, My Path of Life, I just look at what happened to me from when I was born in Jamaica and came here at 13, went to school, and it's up until I'm 18. So I decided to look at my journey till I was 18. And I found it, just looking back at it, I thought, wow, what happened to me has happened to many other people who were born in various Caribbean islands and African countries, etc. and left. Either as children you're left behind, or as adults you came to a country like UK and elsewhere. So I just thought to myself, wow, there must be some real good stories there that be quite impactful, not just to listen to, but to actually hear from people themselves and to record them. And I thought also the fact that I'd done all that time in the military, and by now I started to realize that people had come to this country, World War One, World War Two. And with a combination of all those things, I realized that a lot of our people haven't got any of this knowledge about our own people, what they've done, what they've achieved, sacrifices and contributions they've made, been largely forgotten. So with the combinations of all of that, I then looked at the ethos of what we're doing and say, wouldn't it be good to actually force the government to have uh, uh, in the national curriculum, Black history permanently taught every day, rather than looking at Black history 1 month of the year. So with all this different thinking, I thought I'd set up an organization, set up a website that we can use as an educational platform and record people's stories and look at the whole of an individual or individuals, then look at the environments that we live in and record stories. And it has been amazing because talking to people about their life story, first and foremost, I realized that this can be quite therapeutic. And people tell me that because a lot of times people do not get asked about their life stories. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them welcome the fact that somebody is asking about them. Not everybody wants to tell it publicly, but some people do. And that's great. So I interviewed civilians as well as military, especially World War II veterans. Very few of them are left with us now. And that's absolutely been amazing. So what we do, we try to record for the educational purposes of the younger generations, the generations of now, and for future generations. And we hope that this will make a difference in our communities and our society, locally, nationally, and internationally.
Yeah. It sounds wonderful. I've been on the website. It's an amazing website, and I would encourage all our listeners to go on the website and have a look. Some real interesting historical facts of people of African, Caribbean, British descent and their contributions to, I would say, the society we know as today. Yeah, amazing.
Thank you.
Well done there, and long may that continue. What are the challenges within the forgotten generations? Is it capacity in terms of volunteers, or is it finance? Because we know how hard funding is hard to come by. Or a man have been in 36 years, you're probably loaded. Pay for it yourself, right? 36 years in the RF, boss. A good pension there.
Well, I certainly wouldn't say that I'm loaded.
So what are the challenges?
The challenge is like every other organization, especially sort of a CIC, community interest company like I've set up, is always going to be funding. To initiate the whole thing, I, like many people like myself who got a desire to do these things, you have to take money out of your own pocket until you get established and hopefully get donations or application put into various funding to get funding to fund what you're doing.
I mean, in your work as a motivational speaker and community ambassador, what is the most common challenge when speaking with young Black people, and how do you help them navigate perhaps their own internal obstacles as well as the obstacles that society throws at them?
Yeah, a really good question, because depending on where you go, our inner cities, I should say, are quite different And obviously, as youngsters, you're influenced largely by your surroundings, your peers, your parents, your teachers, etc. So I know a lot of youngsters do not have any focus whatsoever. And if they do have a focus, they tend to have this negative focus of maybe gangs and that sort of thing. Whereas there's a massive world out there where people can get themselves educated. So the emphasis should be on education. Once you're educated, then that really does give you a very good grounding for the rest of your life. So the emphasis to youngsters is to stay away from the guns and the knives if possible. And largely, I believe it is possible. And try and focus on your schooling. So when we get a chance to go into schools and talk to people about life, as it were, I draw the attention to other people, African, Caribbean, and say, look, here are some role models, people who have achieved great things. You know, your foreparents, from World War I to World War II, politics, music, poetry, lots and lots, as you can see on our website.
You do. Excellent. And how do you believe the documenting preserving the stories of African Caribbean communities in the UK contributes to a better understanding of identity and British society today?
It's all education, education, education. If I know more about you and you know more about me, when we learn to respect each other more, what I find is that people judge just by looking at you. And often they do that because they don't know. They've not been educated as to what you are capable of and achieve. So what they've learned, either consciously or subconsciously, is what they take around, and that's what they beat you over the head with or try to. So the moment you stand up and be counted and show them that you're very different and that you're capable, then they learn to respect you. So the bottom line is educating everyone within the community. We've got all different ethnicity, and we've all got our own abilities, our own cultures, and it's a matter of us educating each one of how we culturally, cuisine, music, all these things together. And I think the bottom line there then is that we learn to respect each other more.
And what message would you like to leave for the next generation, particularly those who may feel marginalized or overlooked in today's society?
Yeah, that's quite something. I don't know when this will be resolved, and probably, I don't know, probably never. But we certainly can work at it. And what I go back to education really to make sure that individuals, because as individual we'll face our individual challenges dealing with the individual person on the streets or in the schools or in the colleges or in the universities. We've got to make sure that we take up that mantle of wanting to do better, and also wanting to achieve, and making sure that we do achieve and then balance the whole of our existence. It is very much something that parents and teachers should make sure that the youngsters are plugged into this. Now, I know that's quite difficult because we've got a lot of inner city problems, and I think that will always exist. As a young lad, I saw it, and it's still existing now. But how do we manage that is key. So we've got to ensure that it's minimized rather than, something that is out of proportion. And then we make sure that our youngsters learn from us as a people, yourself and what your team as an organization is doing, the forgotten generations and our team, what we're doing, and put themselves in a position for us to pass the baton on to them as we move on.
Dom, you've been amazing, inspiring, and I want a big thank you to you about what you've shared with us over the last 40, 50 minutes. Do keep in touch, and please, I'll be looking at the website on a regular basis, but if you get anything that you feel this is great to get out, please send it to us on Kirklees Armed Forces TV. So I wish you all the very best with the Forgotten Generations, and keep pushing, my brother, and hopefully we can speak real soon. God bless you.
Milton, I want to say a big thank you today for allowing me to come on your platform and be able to express something of my life. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dom. And to our audience out there, see you next time on Kirklees Armed Forces TV. Bye for now.